Hi there everyone, this is Music is a Journey. I'm Peter Skov, and it is yet another sweaty, sticky, uncomfortable night here in Saitama, Japan. It's incredible how it goes during the day. You know, you wake up in the morning, you go down, you brush your hair, think it looks pretty good, head outside into the hot, sweaty sun, put on a hat, walk for 40 minutes to the station, arrive like soaked in sweat. At work, you gotta like wipe down your body with these minty fresh body wipes and change your shirt and everything, and same thing on the way home at night. No blazing sun, but again, it's just still like very humid and you're sweaty, and you get home and you're all like greasy and your hair looks terrible, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and record a video now. That's what we're doing. Okay, we're kind of on a tight schedule for getting videos done because the one big video I want to finish for this month is the first 10 albums of April Wine. And of course, I also had a challenge thread going on back in August, and I want to wrap that up as well, tell, you know, who submitted what. But a kind of a sudden impulse type video thing came along here. You see, I was just, you know, scrolling around on YouTube the other day, and I happened to see the YouTube channel Mike Vinyl Spiral. It's a bit of a tongue twister almost. Mike Vinyl Spiral. In the thumbnail, he was holding up an album by the Dutch prog band Exception. I had actually come across Exception's music some years back, and I thought I would check them out. The album I checked out wasn't exactly to my taste. However, I saw Mike was holding up this album by Exception, and I was kind of curious, what does he have to say about it? It might have been that the album he was talking about was different from the one I'd heard, and who knows, perhaps there was another Exception album I might be interested in. So I went to watch that video, and then I saw Mike was actually participating in a contest, which is put on by Stefan73, who is in the Netherlands. And Stefan is celebrating 13 years of making videos in the, VC... Is it VC community or is it the vinyl community? Is the C the community part? I guess so. Anyway, that VC thing. And he also had made 600 videos. So he was posting a a contest, kind of a contest anyway, to celebrate his 600th video and 13 years in the community, as well. His birthday's coming up soon. And it was a very simple thing. He's in the Netherlands. He wants us to talk about bands from the Netherlands. And if you actually don't have so many or any, you can also talk about other bands from continental Europe. Now, this was very timely. Of course, my videos always have a long opening story, but allow me to continue. This was very timely because earlier this year I picked up a kind of heavy psychedelic rock from Japan from the early 70s, and I noticed I have a few of them in my collection, and I thought, oh, I should do a video about early 70s heavy psychedelic rock in Japan. And then it made me think, what other countries do I have albums from? Specifically countries where I don't have that many, just maybe a few, and I started thinking about them, and one of the first countries that came to mind was the Netherlands. And so I was making lists of countries and making lists of what bands I had albums of from those countries, and I had a few from the Netherlands. So I thought, oh, maybe that's a topic I can develop more, maybe next year in 2024. And I had just updated the list a few days earlier when I saw Mike holding up the Exception album and found out that Stefan73 was having a contest where you talk about Dutch bands. So I thought, why not just go for it? Now, normally I would listen to everything first before talking about it. However, since I'm on a tight video schedule, I listened to some of them, and I also listened to songs from some of them. And now my intro is done. Here's where I contribute to the contest. So here we go, Stefan73's Dutch Bands Contest. First of all, I'll introduce this one here. This is The Outsiders, and this is A and B sides and more, the golden years of Dutch pop music. I don't remember exactly when they were active, but the oldest track on here is from 1965, and by the sounds of it, the later tracks are from probably 68, I'm going to say, based on the sound of the music. There are a lot of tracks in here. We're looking at 24 and 24. Okay, so we're looking at 48 tracks altogether. The earlier stuff is quite similar, I think, to maybe Rolling Stones or The Pretty Things from around that time. they kind of move into a, like just more or less general, generic guitar rock band sound. Like you could probably find, for example, the less aggressive stuff of the Troggs, or I don't know, lots of other albums having kind of similar style music, The Creation, The Sorrows, that kind of thing, very much like a lot of these British bands. But they start to move into, I guess around 66, they do some faster songs, I think more like Yardbirds, rave up song styles. And then we get into the later part of the 60s where they start getting more experimental. They're moving outside of the standard rock format. A song like, what is it now, Man on the Man on the Dune? The Man on the Dune, yeah, that is actually a really fast song with guitar distortion, which of course got my attention. It sounds very punky. Some of these older tracks, you know, they're short songs but very intense and with guitar distortion, sound kind of proto-punk in a way. An interesting one here is called The Prison Song. This actually tells a story of a man who's being released from prison, and he's walking home, and he comes to his house, and then he goes in, nobody's around, he hears sounds from the bedroom, and he finds his woman with a man he doesn't know, ends up grabbing his pistol, shooting the guy, and realizing he has to run now because he's just killed someone, he's going to go back to prison. But each part of the story, the music changes. So it's very interesting like that. There are some intense parts, very fast. There's some kind of like, you know, sparse but atmospheric parts. Really cool the way they develop the music like that. A couple of other really cool tracks on here too. I think I could probably pull off maybe a selection of 15 or 20 songs that I actually enjoy listening to. You know, I bought this, I listened to it once, there were a few tracks I picked out, and then I didn't listen to it again for some years. So listening to it again now, I was able to recognize there are some songs on here, actually they're pretty cool and I like them. So anyway, The Outsiders there from the Netherlands. Then another 60s band. These guys are a little bit more closer to my taste. Q65, Nothing But Trouble here, 1966 to 1968. Basically, the band released an album in 1966. They had a single in 65, an album in 66, and then a whole bunch of singles after that. There was like the singer got like drafted, or not drafted, he had to go to military duty, the band broke up, other members got back together and continued the band. The band went through various lineup changes. They split up again. They regrouped again in 1980. One of those stories. But what I really like here is mostly this stuff here from 1966. It is this very, actually quite aggressive and hard-hitting, what kind of British blues-based rock style thing, but with a kind of garage proto-punkiness to it. So a lot of the songs here featuring guitar distortion or overdrive, pretty, you know, rough vocals, and pretty aggressive songs on here too. Especially the first half. The second half, I guess we're moving later on in the 60s, and it starts getting a little bit more experimental, which means that we're not always getting, you know, kicked in the teeth by some of these more punchy songs, but nevertheless still an interesting band. I also happen to notice that the Dutch bands seem to really go for the long hair look. Maybe you can see the guy here on the cover. I mean, it's well down past his shoulders, and I think the Dutch bands actually may have had longer hair than the British bands back then in the around 1966 or so. This one's probably more like 67, I guess. But anyway, Q65. Then, of course, Golden Earring. So I don't remember, this is their 6th album, I guess it is, from 1970. Their 7th album called 7 Tears with 7 songs from 1971. This is actually my favorite one, especially the song She Flies on Strange Wings is really, really cool. I love that one. And then the album that came after that is just called Together. It's from 1972. This was the last one I ever got, and I haven't listened to it as much as the other two, but I listened to it more today. Mostly just pretty good rock and hard rock, occasionally some pretty strong kind of, you know, borderline proto-metal riffs in some places, but mostly just, yeah, a really good hard-hitting rock band. A little bit of prog coming in places, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's decent. Like, it's neat to hear all the way back in, you know, 1970 on this album here. They were already putting out some pretty good hard-hitting riffs in the vein of Led Zeppelin and that kind of thing. So that's cool. Of course, probably one of the Netherlands' biggest bands of the 70s here. There's Focus, so we've got here Moving Waves, which I believe is Focus 2, and then here's Focus 3. Of course, the song Hocus Pocus, that's the whole reason why I got into the band in the first place. A couple of other decent things. I don't listen to them as much, but I think, you know, Focus have a pretty strong reputation in the prog world, so maybe I don't need to say as much. All right, now we're going to skip ahead to more modern times. So here's another Dutch artist going by the name under his band project here, Arian. What's his name? Arjen Lucassen. He has all these like kind of rock opera type albums. Where is it here? Into the Electric Castle, The Human Condition, isn't it? Human Condition, and The Theory of Everything are the ones I have. So he does these rock operas. He has all these guest vocalists coming in, each of them playing a different role in the opera, so they're singing the parts of their respective characters. The Human Condition is actually my favorite one. It was the first one I got. Michael Akefeld of Opeth is here. James Labrie from Dream Theater is here. What's her name? Heather... She's on here somewhere. Heather Findlay, right, from Mostly Autumn is on here. Of course, Devin Townsend. This is where I actually first heard Devin Townsend and what totally got me into him. Number of other people. There's quite a list of names, but yeah. So lots of stuff on here. Some heavier stuff, some metal stuff, some folky Celtic stuff, and a really good variety of music, which makes the albums very entertaining, as well as the whole like story thing that's going on. Okay, then here is a band I picked up one time. I don't remember how I heard of them. I think I read a review and thought I'll just order it and see what it's like. So this is a band called Nice Beaver. You remember in Naked Gun, the movie Naked Gun, where Priscilla Presley was wearing a skirt and she went up the ladder, and then Leslie Nielsen was watching her go up the ladder, and then he says, "Nice beaver." And she says, "Thanks." And then she comes down holding this big beaver, and she says, "I just got it stuffed." And it's kind of funny because, obviously, anyway, but still the fact that she just got her beaver stuffed still keeps the kind of sexual innuendo going, which I thought was very funny. But anyway, here's the band Nice Beaver. I don't know, they have a few albums out. So this one here is not, they're labeled as prog, but it's not like, you know, in-your-face, twisty-turny type prog. It's more easy, laid back in most places. There's a very nice warm bass sound, very clear production on the drums, mostly clean guitar, and some supportive keyboards. Like there are no like wicked keyboard solos. There are these kind of weird time signature type moments here and there, and there's also a couple of places with some kind of prog metal riffs, which are kind of curious because the whole atmosphere of the album is not prog metal or even metal at all, but kind of they pop that in here and there. The vocal style to me is a lot like the kind of late 90s, early 2000s alternative rock type vocal style. It's not an album I listened to all that much, but I did listen to a few tracks this evening on the way home, and very nice, warm, rich, and mostly easygoing, laid-back sound. So if you don't want, you know, a whole gymnastics exercise of progressive rock, or you don't want anything that's going to be too heavy and, you know, punch holes in your eardrums, then this might be something a little bit more up your alley. Then, this was kind of a surprise one. This was another one of those, I read a review, I thought I'd check them out. This is a band, Sky Architect, 2 Billion Years of Solitude. And actually, I didn't even consider them for making this video. It's just that the night before, I was checking like Dutch rock bands, Dutch prog bands, Dutch metal bands, just to see who was coming up on the, you know, the top, 50 that Wikipedia, the top 50 that Google gives me, and then just are any of those ones that I have. And Sky Architect's name showed up for Dutch prog bands. So I thought, oh, yeah, that's cool. I actually have an album by these guys. So this is probably closer to the Spock's Beard style of prog. They have these like longer tracks. There's some more harder hitting parts. There's a lot of like twisty-turny, tricky-dicky time signature exercises with guitar and keyboards, more mellow spot parts, and also these guys have a bit more of a psychedelic thing coming in at times as well. So I listened to a couple of tracks on the way home tonight, and just reminded myself what this was like. But yeah, there we go, Sky Architect. I think they have 3 or 4 albums out now. And now we're going to get into the heavy stuff, but we have to backtrack a little bit here. Of course, one of the, I guess, more important bands coming out of the Netherlands is Pestilence. So here this, what is it? Malleus Maleficarum. I think it probably has some Latin phrase that everybody who went to university knows about, but since I didn't finish, I don't know about it. Anyway, this was their first album, and this one being more of a kind of Slayer type thrash style, but by the next album here, Consuming Impulse, they had started to move more into the death metal style. Their vocalist Martin van Drunen on these 2 albums here later on left the band and went off to another band. We're going to talk about them soon. But both of these albums show up in the lists of the old school death metal, top old school death metal bands. And so, of course, when I was doing my old school death metal research and list of top 20, 25 albums, whatever it was, I had to buy some of the ones I didn't have, and I got these 2 Pestilence ones here. So those are pretty damn cool because I like that old school death metal stuff. And then following along the same vein, Martin van Drunen left Pestilence to go into a band called Asphyx. And he was with them for the first 2 albums or so before he quit. This is their second album, Last One on Earth. The first album was called The Rack, which is often considered their most important in death metal. But I find a lot of these like extreme metal bands, it's usually their debut that is the most important. Maybe because that's where they bring their offering to the developing subgenre. And then later on it just becomes like similar. A lot of their albums remain similar, so it's the first one that really kicks in the doors there. But this is the second one here anyway, Last One on Earth. And then the very first Asphyx album I bought is actually one from, I think, 2016, was it? Incoming Death. And the band had actually been inactive for a while, and then regrouped with Martin van Drunen on vocals. So Incoming Death, this was my first taste of Asphyx, and sounds gross, doesn't it? My first taste of what? But anyway, very, very cool, like this very kind of a death doom style, so not really speedy, but more really slow and very, very heavy. Song here called War Droid is just really awesome. I really like the sound of this album. I actually think it sounds better than this one, but this is, you know, more of the classic one. Okay, and that is my 8 Dutch bands that I have in my collection. As usual, talked an awful lot, but there you go. So, congratulations to Stefan on your 600 videos and 13 years in the vinyl community as well. A happy forthcoming birthday to you. Alright, that does it. I'll talk more in another video. You guys have heard enough of me for today. Thanks you all for watching, and oh yes, I will put Stefan 73's channel link in the description for this video here so you can check that out. Alright, oh and hey, participate in the contest if you want. He's giving away 7-inch vinyls. Seriously, watch his video and you can find out. Alright, cheers everyone, bye.